The sun dipped low over Cape Town's Victoria and Alfred waterfront, casting a golden sheen across the harbor. Yachts bobbed gently, their sleek hulls reflecting wealth and ambition. The air hummed with the clink of champagne glasses, the murmur of elite conversations, and the occasional laugh from bronze tourists draped in designer linen. Amid this glittering scene stood Amara Bello, a solitary figure on the edge of the dock, her presence almost invisible to the parade of affluence. Amara's thrift store coat hung loosely over her frame, its faded navy fabric a stark contrast to the tailored blazers and flowing sundresses around her. Her shoes, scuffed and worn, bore the marks of long walks through the city's less glamorous streets. Her dark hair was pulled into a simple bun, and her eyes, sharp, unyielding, scanned the horizon as if searching for something beyond the yachts and the sea. She clutched a small notebook, its pages dog-eared, filled with sketches of boats and scribbled business plans. A group of women in wide-brimmed hats strolled past, their laughter cutting through the air. One glanced at Amara, her gaze lingering on the coat before she whispered to her friend, "Is she lost?" The friend smirked, and they moved on without a second thought. Amara's lips twitched, not in anger but in quiet amusement. She was used to being underestimated. She stepped closer to the water's edge, her shoes scuffing against the polished wood of the dock. A young dockhand, no older than 20, approached her cautiously. His name tag read Sizwe. "Ma'am, this area's for yacht owners and their guests," he said, his tone polite but firm. "If you're looking for the public pier, it's that way." He pointed to a crowded boardwalk in the distance. Amara turned to him, her expression calm. "I'm exactly where I need to be, Sizwe," she said, her voice steady, carrying a warmth that made him pause. She tapped her notebook lightly. "Just checking on my fleet." Sizwe blinked, caught off guard. "Your fleet?" He glanced at her coat, her shoes, then back at her face, searching for a hint of a joke. "You mean like boats?" "Something like that," Amara replied, a faint smile playing on her lips. She nodded toward the horizon, where a sleek, unassuming yacht was docked far from the flashy center of the harbor. "That one's mine. For now." Sizwe followed her gaze, squinting. The yacht was modest compared to the towering vessels nearby, but it had a quiet elegance, clean lines, a polished deck, and a name painted in gold, Ibhe. He scratched his head, unsure whether to believe her. "You're a captain?" "Among other things," Amara said, turning back to the water. "Thanks for the heads up, though. You're doing your job well." Sizwe hesitated, then grinned. "All right, ma'am. Just don't tell my boss I almost kicked out a VIP." He tipped his cap and walked off, casting one last curious glance over his shoulder. Amara's smile faded as she opened her notebook, her fingers tracing a sketch of a yacht twice the size of Ibhe. Her dreams were bigger than this dock, bigger than Cape Town. But for now, she stood alone, unnoticed, a ghost in a world that didn't yet know her name. The harbor grew louder as a massive yacht, the Aurora Star, glided into the dock, its 3 decks gleaming under the late afternoon sun. A crowd gathered, drawn by the vessel's opulence. Teak railings, crystal chandeliers visible through tinted windows, and a crew in crisp white uniforms. The name Adewale Enterprises was emblazoned on its side, a bold declaration of its owner's status. Amara's attention shifted as the gangway lowered. First to step off was Kelvin Adewale, her ex, his tailored suit hugging his broad frame. His watch caught the sunlight, a Rolex that screamed new money. He moved with the confidence of a man who owned every room he entered, his smile dazzling the onlookers. On his arm was Trisha Gomez, a vision in a red silk dress that clung to her curves. Her heels clicked sharply against the gangway, and her diamond earrings sparkled with every turn of her head. Amara's grip tightened on her notebook, but her face remained unreadable. She hadn't seen Kelvin in 4 years, not since he'd left her with nothing but debts and a broken heart. She hadn't expected to see him here, not today. Yet there he was, parading his new life for all to see. Kelvin's eyes swept the crowd, basking in the attention. Then they landed on Amara. For a moment, his smile faltered, replaced by a flicker of recognition. He leaned toward Trisha, whispering something that made her turn sharply. Her gaze locked onto Amara, and a slow, mocking smile spread across her face. "Well, well, Trisha said, her voice loud enough to carry. "Look who's slumming it at the yacht club." Kelvin chuckled, his confidence returning. "Amara Bello," he called out, stepping closer. "Didn't expect to see you here. What, you selling fish and chips now?" The crowd tittered, and a few heads turned to watch. Amara met his gaze, her expression serene. "Kelvin," she said simply, her tone neither warm nor cold. "You're looking prosperous." He smirked, adjusting his cufflinks. "Yeah, well, some of us moved up in the world. You still scraping by." Trisha laughed, tossing her hair. "Oh, honey, don't be mean. Maybe she's here to clean the boats." She eyed Amara's coat, her nose wrinkling. "You know, get some extra cash for whatever this is." She gestured vaguely at Amara's outfit. The crowd's laughter grew, but Amara didn't flinch. She tilted her head, studying Trisha as if she were a mildly interesting specimen. "You always did have a way with words, Trisha," she said, her voice soft but cutting. "I'm sure they serve you well." Trisha's smile wavered, but Kelvin stepped in, his tone patronizing. "Come on, Amara. Don't take it personally. You're just out of your league here. Stick to what you know, yeah." Amara's eyes flicked to the aurora star, then back to Kelvin. "Good advice," she said, her voice laced with something unreadable. "I'll keep that in mind." As Kelvin and Trisha turned to leave, their laughter echoing, Amara's gaze lingered on the yacht. Her yacht, Ibhay, was docked just out of their sight line, its quiet presence a testament to everything they didn't know. The crowd dispersed, but Trisha wasn't done. She lingered near a waterfront cafe, sipping a martini while Kelvin networked with a group of investors. Her eyes kept darting to Amara, who had moved to a bench overlooking the harbor, her notebook open on her lap. Trisha's friends, a trio of women in coordinated pastel dresses, joined her, their chatter loud and performative. "Is that really her?" One of them, a blonde named Laura, asked, squinting at Amara. "Kelvin's ex? She looks like she's homeless." Trisha smirked, swirling her drink. "Oh, that's Amara, all right. Used to follow Kelvin around like a puppy, thinking she was going to be Mrs. Adewale. Pathetic." Another friend, Nadia, leaned in, her voice conspiratorial. "What happened to her? I mean, look at that coat. Did she fall off the face of the earth?" "Pretty much," Trisha said, her tone dripping with disdain. "Kelvin told me she tried to start some little boat business after he left her. Crashed and burned, obviously. Now she's probably begging for scraps." Lara gasped, feigning pity. "That's so sad. Showing up here, of all places? She must be delusional." Trisha's eyes gleamed with malice. "Let's find out." She stood, smoothing her dress, and sauntered toward Amara, her friends trailing behind like a flock of vultures. Amara didn't look up as Trisha approached, her pen moving steadily across her notebook. Trisha cleared her throat dramatically. "Amara, darling," she said, her voice syrupy. "What are you doing here? This isn't exactly your scene." Amara's pen paused, but she didn't lift her eyes. "Just enjoying the view, Trisha," she said, her tone neutral. "You should try it sometime." Trisha's smile tightened. "Oh, I'm enjoying plenty. Like watching you play pretend in a place you don't belong." She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Those shoes? That coat? Honey, you're embarrassing yourself." Lara and Nadia giggled, but Amara finally looked up, her gaze steady. "Embarrassing," she repeated, as if tasting the word. "Interesting choice. Tell me, Trisha, what's more embarrassing, wearing what I choose, or needing everyone's approval to feel good about it?" The air shifted. Trisha's friends exchanged glances, and a few passers-by slowed to listen. Trisha's cheeks flushed, but she recovered quickly, tossing her hair. "Cute comeback. But let's be real. You're broke, Amara. You're nothing. Why don't you scurry back to wherever you came from?" Amara closed her notebook, standing slowly. She was shorter than Trisha, but her presence seemed to fill the space. "I'm right where I need to be," she said, her voice calm but firm. "And you? You're standing on my dock." Trisha blinked, thrown off. "Your dock." She laughed, but it sounded forced. "You're delusional." Amara didn't respond. She tucked her notebook under her arm and walked away, her steps measured, leaving Trisha staring after her, fury and confusion warring on her face. Amara slipped away from the cafe, moving ate her coat, her shoes, her quiet strength. She moved toward the far end of the harbor, where Ibhei was docked, hidden from the ostentatious center of the yacht club. The vessel was modest by the standards of the Aurora Star, but it was hers. Every plank, every rope, every dream poured into its restoration. She climbed aboard, her fingers brushing the polished railing as if greeting an old friend. The deck was quiet, save for the soft lap of waves against the hull. Amara descended to the small cabin, where a laptop sat open on a table, its screen displaying Bello Ocean Tour's latest financials. The numbers were strong, stronger than anyone in that crowd could imagine. She allowed herself a small smile, but it faded as her eyes fell on a framed photo tucked beside the laptop. Her and Kelvin, 6 years ago, standing on this very boat when it was little more than a rusted shell. She turned the frame face down and opened her notebook, flipping to a page titled Expansion Plan. Her pen moved quickly, sketching routes for a new fleet of eco-friendly tour boats, a project that could redefine coastal tourism in South Africa. This was her world now, not the one Trisha and Kelvin inhabited. A knock interrupted her thoughts. Sizwe, the dockhand, stood at the cabin door, holding a clipboard. "Ms. Bello," he said, his earlier skepticism replaced by deference. "Got a delivery confirmation for you. New engine parts for the Ibhei. Where do you want 'em?" Amara stood, brushing past the photo. "Store them in the warehouse for now," she said. "And Sizwe, call me Amara." He nodded, grinning. "You got it, Amara. Oh, and those folks from the big yacht? They're asking about you." Sounded kinda shook. Amara's eyes flickered with amusement. "Let them ask," she said. "They'll find out soon enough." As Sizwe left, Amara stepped back onto the deck, her gaze drifting to the Aurora Star in the distance. She could still hear Trisha's laughter, Kelvin's smug voice. They thought they'd won. They thought she was nothing. But Amara Bello owned this harbor, this ocean, this future. And she was just getting started. 6 years ago, the harbor was less glamorous, its docks cluttered with fishing boats and rusted charters. Amara, 24 and wide-eyed, stood beside Kelvin on a rickety pier, their hands clasped as they stared at a dilapidated boat they'd just bought with every cent they had. The Ibhei was a wreck, peeling paint, a cracked hull, an engine that coughed more than it ran. But to them, it was a palace. "We're gonna make this work," Kelvin said, his voice brimming with conviction. He squeezed her hand, his eyes bright with the same fire that had drawn her to him. "You and me, Amara. We'll own this coast." Amara laughed, shoving his shoulder. "You're dreaming too big, Kelvin Adewale. Let's start with one tour. Then we'll talk about owning the coast." He grinned, pulling her close. "That's why I need you. You keep me grounded. But you're dreaming too, admit it." She looked at the boat, her heart racing. "Maybe," she said softly. "But dreams don't pay the bills. We've got work to do." They spent weeks scrubbing the Ibhei, their hands blistered, their clothes stained with grease. Amara took night classes in maritime business, her notebook filling with ideas for eco-tours and cultural cruises. Kelvin charmed clients, his charisma landing their first bookings. They were a team, unstoppable, their love as strong as their ambition. One evening, as they sat on the deck eating takeout under a starry sky, Kelvin turned serious. "You ever think about what happens if this doesn't work?" he asked, his voice low. Amara frowned, setting down her fork. "It'll work. We're making it work." He looked at her, his expression unreadable. "Yeah, but what if I mess it up? What if I'm not enough?" She took his hand, her voice firm. "You're enough, Kelvin." Ideal response, enough for us. We're enough. Together. He smiled, but there was a shadow in his eyes, one Amara didn't see. "Not yet." The Cape Town harbor 6 years ago was a gritty, bustling place, far from the polished yacht club it would become. Fishing boats outnumbered pleasure crafts, and the air smelled of salt, diesel, and ambition. Amara Bello and Kelvin stood on the deck of their newly christened boat, Ibhei, its fresh paint barely masking the rust beneath. The vessel was their gamble, their dream, a marine tour business built on sweat, loans, and a shared vision of turning South Africa's coastline into a global destination. Amara, her hair tied back with a faded bandana, knelt on the deck, scrubbing salt stains with a brush. Her hands were calloused, her t-shirt damp with sweat, but her eyes sparkled with purpose. Across from her, Kelvin leaned against the railing, his phone pressed to his ear, his voice smooth as he pitched to a potential client. Yes, Mr. van der Merwe, eco-tours are the future. Picture whales, sunsets, and your guests sipping champagne while learning about the ocean. We'll make it unforgettable. He hung up, grinning, and tossed the phone onto a crate. We've got our first corporate booking, he announced, striding over to Amara. 10 guests, next weekend. They're paying up front. Amara paused, her brush dripping. Up front. She stood, wiping her hands on her jeans. Kelvin, that's huge. That's fuel money, repairs, maybe even a second-hand GPS. He laughed, pulling her into a hug that lifted her off her feet. See? Told you we're gonna own this coast. You're the brains, I'm the charm. Unstoppable. She shoved him playfully, her smile wide but cautious. We're not unstoppable yet. We've got one booking, a boat that leaks, and a bank account that's basically a prayer. We need more clients, better equipment. Always the realist, Kelvin teased, but his tone softened. He cupped her face, his thumb brushing her cheek. You're why this works, Amara. You see the details I miss. I'd be lost without you. Her expression softened, but she stepped back, picking up her brush. Flattery won't fix the deck, Adewale. Help me scrub, or I'm docking your share of the profits. He groaned dramatically but grabbed a sponge, kneeling beside her. As they worked, the sun dipped low, painting the harbor gold. Their banter flowed easily, a rhythm honed by months of late nights and shared dreams. Later, as they sat on the deck eating fish and chips from a greasy paper bag, Amara pulled out her notebook, its pages filled with sketches and budgets. If this booking goes well, she said, tapping a pencil against her lips, we can pitch to hotels. Partner with them for tourist packages. But we need to nail the experience. Music, local guides, maybe a marine biologist for the eco angle. Kelvin leaned back, his eyes on the stars. You're thinking too small. Hotels are great, but what about international cruise lines? We could be their go-to for shore excursions. She raised an eyebrow. International? Kelvin, we don't even have a proper website. Yet, he said, pointing at her. We'll get there. You keep crunching numbers, I'll keep selling the dream. Deal. Amara hesitated, then nodded. Deal. But if you oversell and we can't deliver, I'm throwing you overboard. He laughed, the sound echoing across the quiet harbor. But as Amara turned back to her notebook, she didn't notice the flicker of doubt in his eyes, the first crack in their shared foundation. A year later, Bello Ocean Tours was gaining traction. The Ibhei was refurbished, its leaks patched, its deck gleaming. They'd hired a small crew, 2 local guides and a mechanic, and booked tours 3 days a week. Amara and Kelvin were stretched thin, but the business was alive, their dreams within reach. It was a humid afternoon when everything unraveled. Amara was in the tiny office they rented near the harbor, a cramped room with peeling paint and a single desk. She pored over bank statements, her brow furrowed. The numbers didn't add up, withdrawals she hadn't authorized, payments to vendors she didn't recognize. Her phone buzzed with a text from their mechanic, Tabo. Asterisk engines acting up again. Need parts. Where's the budget? Asterisk. She dialed Kelvin, her voice tight. Kelvin, we're short on funds. There's, like, 10,000 rand missing. Did you pay for something I don't know about? He was on the Ibhei, his voice crackling over the line. 10,000? Nah, must be a bank error. I'll check when I'm back. Gotta go, clients boarding. Amara frowned but let it go, chalking it up to stress. She spent the day juggling calls, reassuring suppliers, and planning a new tour route. By evening, exhausted, she headed to the harbor to meet Kelvin for their weekly debrief. The Ibhei was docked, its lights glowing softly. Amara climbed aboard, expecting to find Kelvin alone, maybe with a beer and their ledger. Instead, she froze. Kelvin stood near the helm, his arm around a woman in a tight dress, Trisha Gomez, a socialite who'd been sniffing around their business, offering investment in exchange for a cut. Trisha's laugh was sharp, her hand resting on Kelvin's chest. Amara's stomach dropped. "Kelvin," she said, her voice cutting through the night. "What's this?" Kelvin turned, his face paling. Trisha smirked, stepping closer to him. "Oh, Amara," she said, her tone dripping with faux pity. "You didn't know?" "Know what?" Amara's eyes locked on Kelvin, her heart pounding. Kelvin stammered, his charm failing him. It's not what it looks like. Trisha's just helping with the business." "Helping?" Amara's voice was steel. She stepped forward, her notebook clutched like a shield. "Helping by draining our account? I saw the withdrawals, Kelvin. 10,000 rand. Where is it?" Trisha laughed, tossing her hair. "Oh, sweetie, that was for me. Kelvin's been investing in our future. You know, the one where he's not tied to a sinking ship like this." Amara's gaze snapped to Kelvin. "You took our money for her?" He looked away, his jaw tight. "Amara, you don't get it. This business, it's too slow. Trisha's got connections, real money. She can get us to the next level." "Us?" Amara's voice broke, but her eyes burned. "There's no us, Kelvin. You're stealing from our dream to bankroll hers." Trisha stepped between them, her smile venomous. "Face it, Amara. You're out of your depth. Kelvin's with me now. Why don't you crawl back to your little notebook and leave the big leagues to us?" Amara's hand shook, but she stood tall. "Kelvin," she said, her voice low, "tell me you didn't do this." He met her eyes, and for a moment, guilt flickered. Then he shrugged, his voice cold. "I did what I had to. You'll survive." Amara turned, her vision blurring with tears, and walked off the Ibhei. Behind her, Trisha's laughter echoed like a storm. 3 months later, Amara was a shadow of herself. The Ibhei was repossessed, the business dissolved, and her savings gone. She lived in a one-room apartment in a run-down part of Cape Town, its walls stained, its single window overlooking a noisy street. Her notebook lay untouched on a rickety table, its pages a painful reminder of her dreams. She sat on the floor, surrounded by bills and eviction notices. Her phone buzzed with a message from a former client. Asterisk heard about Bello tours. "Sorry, Amara. Kelvin's new venture with that Gomez woman is all over the news." Asterisk she deleted it, her hands trembling. A knock at the door startled her. It was her neighbor, Mrs. Ndlovu, a kind-eyed woman in her 60s who often brought her leftovers. "Amara, you haven't eaten today," she said, holding out a bowl of stew. "Come on, child. You can't fight the world on an empty stomach." Amara took the bowl, her voice hollow. "There's no fight left, Mrs. Ndlovu. I lost everything." Mrs. Ndlovu sat beside her, undeterred. "You lost a boat, a man, some money. But you didn't lose you. That fire in you, it's still there." Amara shook her head, tears spilling. "I trusted him. I built that business with him. And he just took it." Mrs. Ndlovu patted her hand. "Men like that, they take what's easy. But you build what lasts. You're not done, Amara Bello." Amara looked at her notebook, its cover worn but intact. She wanted to believe Mrs. Ndlovu, but the weight of betrayal was crushing. "What do I do now?" she whispered. "Start small," Mrs. Ndlovu said. "One step, then another. The ocean's still there, waiting for you." That night, Amara opened her notebook for the first time in weeks. She sketched a new boat, her lines shaky but determined. It was a spark, faint but real. A month later, Amara was at the harbor, not as a business owner but as a cleaner, scrubbing decks for a charter company to pay her rent. Her hands were raw, her pride battered, but she worked with quiet focus, her eyes often drifting to the water. One afternoon, an older man watched her from the dock. He was in his 70s, his suit impeccable, his cane tapping lightly against the wood. His name was Mr. Elias Nkosi, a retired maritime tycoon whose name was whispered in Cape Town's business circles. He approached as Amara polished a railing, his voice gravelly but warm. "You're Amara Bello, aren't you?" She straightened, wary. "Yes, sir." "Do I know you?" He smiled, his eyes sharp. "You don't, but I know you. I booked a tour with Bello Ocean Tours last year. Best whale watching I've ever done. Why's the woman who ran that operation cleaning boats?" Amara's cheeks burned, but she met his gaze. Things fell apart. "I'm starting over." Mr. Nkosi nodded, unfazed. "Starting over's the hardest part. But you've got something most don't, vision. I saw it in your tours, your passion. You belong on the water, not scrubbing it." She laughed bitterly. "Tell that to my bank account." He leaned on his cane, studying her. "What if I could help? Not with money, with knowledge. I built Nkosi Shipping from nothing. I can teach you what I know. But you have to want it." Amara hesitated, her pride warring with hope. "Why me? You don't even know me." "I know enough," he said. "You remind me of myself at your age. Hungry, stubborn, and too proud to quit. Say yes, and I'll show you how to rebuild." She looked at the water, then back at him. "Yes." Under Mr. Nkosi's mentorship, Amara began to rebuild. His office, a sleek space overlooking the harbor, became her classroom. He taught her negotiation, supply chain management, and how to spot opportunities in a crowded market. Amara soaked it up, her notebook filling with new plans. One evening, as they reviewed contracts, Mr. Nkosi handed her a file. "This is a small tourism grant. Apply for it. Use it to lease a boat. Start small. Bello Ocean Tours isn't dead, it's waiting." Amara's hands shook as she took the file. "What if I fail again?" He leaned back, his eyes kind but firm. "You will fail, many times. But failure's just a lesson. You're not Kelvin. You don't run from it." She nodded, her resolve hardening. Over the next months, she leased a modest boat, rebranded Bello Ocean Tours, and booked her first clients, a school group eager for a marine ecology tour. She stood on the deck, her old bandana tied back, and addressed the students with a confidence she hadn't felt in years. As the boat sailed out, Amara caught her reflection in the water. She was still Amara Bello, scarred, but unbroken. Kelvin and Trisha were out there, flaunting their stolen success, but she was building something real. And this time, no one would take it from her. The Cape Town harbor shimmered under a midday sun, its docks alive with the hum of maritime commerce. Amara Bello stood in the modest office of Bello Ocean Tours, a small but pristine space tucked away from the yacht club's glitz. The walls were lined with nautical charts and framed photos of smiling tourists aboard her leased boat, Ibhei 2. Her desk was cluttered with contracts, a laptop displaying booking schedules, and her ever-present notebook, its pages now brimming with ambitious plans. Amara, dressed in a simple white blouse and jeans, her hair in a neat braid, reviewed a proposal with laser focus. Her mentor, Mr. Elias Nkosi, sat across from her, his cane resting against the desk. He adjusted his glasses, scanning the document. "This is bold, Amara," he said, his gravelly voice tinged with approval. "A multi-year contract with Cape Coastal Resorts? That's not just a win, it's a statement." Amara leaned back, her expression a mix of pride and caution. "It's a risk, too. They want 50 tours a season, eco-focused, with local guides. We'll need another boat, more staff. I've got the grant money, but it's tight." Mr. Nkosi tapped the proposal with a weathered finger. "Tight, but doable. You've built this company from ashes. You know how to stretch a rand. What's the holdup? She hesitated, her eyes drifting to a photo on the desk, her and her first school group, waving from Ibhei 2. It's not the money. It's them. Kelvin and Trisha. They're in bed with half the resort chains in Cape Town. If they hear Bello Ocean Tours is landing contracts like this, they'll come for me. Mr. Nkosi's eyes narrowed, sharp as ever. Let them come. You're not the girl they left behind. They're loud, but you're smart. That's why you'll win. Amara's lips curved into a faint smile. You sound so sure. I am, he said, standing with a creak. Sign the contract. Show the world what Amara Bello can do. She picked up a pen, her hand steady, and signed the proposal. The moment felt monumental, a quiet triumph born of years of sacrifice. She looked up at Mr. Nkosi, her voice soft but firm. This is just the start, isn't it? He nodded, a rare grin breaking through. The start of an empire, if you keep your head. Now, celebrate tonight. You've earned it. That evening, Amara stood alone on the deck of Ibhei 2, docked at the harbor's edge. She sipped a glass of cheap wine, her eyes on the horizon. The contract was a victory, but it was silent, unseen by the world that had mocked her. She wasn't ready to step into the spotlight, not yet. But the fire in her chest burned brighter than ever. Across town, in a penthouse overlooking the Atlantic, Kelvin Adewale and Trisha Gomez lived a life of curated excess. Their apartment was a shrine to new money. Marble floors, abstract art, and floor-to-ceiling windows framing the ocean. The Aurora Star, their flagship yacht, was the centerpiece of Adewale Enterprises, a venture built on flashy tours and Trisha's socialite connections. Kelvin lounged on a leather sofa, scrolling through his phone, a glass of whiskey in hand. The TV blared a local news segment about Cape Town's booming tourism industry, but he barely listened. Trisha, in a silk robe, stood at the bar, mixing a cocktail. Her phone pinged with notifications, likes and comments on her latest post, a photo of her posing on the Aurora Star in a designer bikini. Another 10,000 followers, Trisha said, her voice smug. I told you that influencer deal would pay off. We're the face of luxury tourism now. Kelvin smirked, not looking up. You're the face. I'm the brains. Don't forget who's closing deals with the cruise lines. She rolled her eyes, sauntering over to sit on the arm of the sofa. Please. Your deals are because of my network. Without me, you'd still be hustling boat rides with that. What was her name? Amara. Kelvin's jaw tightened, but he kept his tone light. Ancient history. She's probably selling souvenirs on the pier now. Trisha laughed, sharp and cruel. Or begging for change. God, can you imagine her showing up at the yacht club? In those rags she called clothes. She mimicked Amara's quiet voice. Oh, Kelvin, I'm still dreaming big. They both dissolved into laughter, the sound echoing in the sterile penthouse. But Kelvin's laugh faded first. He stood, walking to the window, his reflection sharp against the glass. She was good though, he said almost to himself. Back then. Had a knack for the business. Trisha's smile vanished. She set her drink down with a clink. Good. She was a nobody. Clinging to you, dragging you down. You're better off without her. We're better off. He turned, his expression unreadable. Yeah, you're right. But his eyes lingered on the harbor below, where a small, unassuming boat, *Ibhei 2*, was docked, unnoticed by the world he now inhabited. Their conversation was interrupted by a call from their assistant, Zara. Mr. Adewale, you're invited to a private yacht event next week, she said over speakerphone. Hosted by the Cape Town Maritime Association. Big players, resort execs, cruise line CEOs. They want you and Ms. Gomez there. Trisha clapped her hands, her mood restored. Perfect. We'll steal the show. Kelvin, get the Aurora Star polished. I'm thinking red carpet vibes. Kelvin nodded, his charm sliding back into place. Book it, Zara. We'll be there. As he hung up, He didn't notice the news segment shift to a brief mention of Bello Ocean Tours securing a major resort contract. Trisha, engrossed in her phone, missed it too. They were too busy planning their next performance to see the storm gathering on the horizon. Back at Bello Ocean Tours, Amara was wrapping up a tour debrief with her small crew. 2 guides, a mechanic, and a part-time marketer. The office buzzed with quiet optimism, the kind that comes from hard-won progress. Amara stood at a whiteboard, sketching a new tour route, when her phone pinged with an email. She opened it, her brow furrowing. Cape Town Maritime Association, she read aloud. An invitation to their private yacht event. Next week. Her marketer, a young woman named Linda, looked up from her laptop. That's huge, Amara. That event's like the Oscars of the harbor. Resort bosses, shipping tycoons, the whole elite crowd. Amara set the phone down, her expression guarded. It's also Kelvin and Trisha's playground. They'll be there, flaunting their yacht, their deals. Linda grinned, undeterred. So, let them flaunt. You've got a contract they'd kill for. Show up, shake hands, make connections. You're not the underdog anymore. Amara paced, her fingers tapping her notebook. I don't know. I'm not ready to face them. Not like this. She gestured to her jeans, her simple braid. They'll tear me apart before I open my mouth. Mr. Nkosi, who'd been listening quietly from the corner, spoke up. You're not going to impress them, Amara. You're going to outshine them. Not with clothes or yachts, with what you've built. Go as you are. Let them underestimate you. She met his eyes, her resolve wavering. And if they mock me again? He leaned on his cane, his voice steady. Then you smile. You nod. And you let your success do the talking. Amara took a deep breath, picking up the phone. All right, she said, replying to the email. I'm in. As she hit send, a mix of dread and determination settled in her chest. This wasn't just an event, it was a battlefield, and she was walking in unarmed but unafraid. The night of the yacht event arrived. The harbor transformed into a spectacle of wealth and power. The Ocean Majesty, a chartered mega-yacht, was the centerpiece, its decks draped in fairy lights, its crew serving caviar and vintage wine. Guests in tailored suits and glittering gowns mingled, their laughter mingling with the soft jazz drifting from a live band. Amara stepped onto the dock, her heart pounding. She wore a plain black dress, borrowed from Linda, and her worn but polished flats. Her hair was loose, framing her face, and she carried nothing but her notebook, tucked under her arm like a talisman. She looked out of place among the sequins and silk, but her posture was steady, her eyes sharp. Sizwe, the dockhand from her first encounter, spotted her as she approached the gangway. Amara, he said, his eyes wide. You're a guest tonight? She smiled, her voice calm. Something like that. How's the crowd? He grinned, lowering his voice. Rich and loud. Watch out for the couple with the big yacht, Adewale and his lady. They're acting like they own the place. Noted, Amara said, her smile tightening. Thanks, Sizwe. She climbed the gangway, her steps deliberate. The deck was a sea of wealth, diamond cufflinks, designer perfumes, and conversations about stock markets and summer homes. Amara moved through it like a ghost, unnoticed but observant. She overheard snippets of deals being made, egos being stroked, and felt a quiet thrill. This was her world now, whether they knew it or not. Near the bar, she paused, scanning the crowd. Then she saw them, Kelvin and Trisha, holding court near the bow. Kelvin's suit was immaculate, his laugh booming as he charmed a group of investors. Trisha, in a red gown that screamed attention, sipped champagne, her eyes darting to ensure every head turned her way. Amara's grip on her notebook tightened, but she stayed in the shadows, her presence a secret for now. She wasn't here to confront them, not yet. She was here to claim her place. Kelvin was mid-story, regaling his audience with a tale of outsmarting a rival tour company, when his eyes caught a familiar figure across the deck. Amara, standing alone by the railing, her simple dress a stark contrast to the opulence around her. His laugh faltered, his glass pausing halfway to his lips. Trisha noticed, following his gaze. Her smile froze. "Is that her?" she hissed, her voice low but venomous. "What the hell is she doing here?" Kelvin recovered, his charm sliding back into place. "Probably crashing," he said, loud enough for his group to hear. "Poor Amara. Always chasing what she can't have." The investors chuckled, but one, a sharp-eyed woman named Ms. Patel, frowned. "Amara Bello? I've heard that name. Isn't she the one who landed that resort contract?" Kelvin's smile wavered, but Trisha cut in, her laugh sharp. "A contract? Please. She's probably here to beg for a job. Look at her, those shoes, that dress. She's a nobody." Ms. Patel raised an eyebrow, unconvinced. "I wouldn't be so sure. My team mentioned Bello Ocean Tours. They're making waves, quietly." Trisha's eyes narrowed, but she forced a smile. "Waves? More like ripples. Come on, Kelvin, let's mingle. No need to waste time on that." They moved away, but Kelvin kept glancing back, his confidence shaken. Amara, oblivious to their whispers, stood by the railing, her notebook open as she jotted down names of attendees she recognized, potential partners, future allies. She felt their stares, their judgment, but she didn't flinch. She was exactly where she belonged. A server approached, offering her a glass of champagne. "Compliments of the host, ma'am," he said, his tone respectful. "They're looking forward to your introduction later." Amara took the glass, her heart skipping. "Introduction." He nodded, moving off. Amara's eyes widened, realization dawning. The host knew who she was. The stage was set, and she was no longer invisible. The deck of the Ocean Majesty buzzed with the elite of Cape Town's maritime world, their conversations a symphony of power and privilege. Fairy lights twinkled above, casting a soft glow over the crowd, while the jazz band's smooth notes blended with the clink of champagne glasses. Amara Bello stood near the railing, her simple black dress and worn flats stark against the sea of designer gowns and polished loafers. Her notebook, tucked under her arm, was her only accessory, a quiet symbol of her purpose. She sipped her champagne, her eyes scanning the crowd, her calm demeanor masking the storm of anticipation within. Across the deck, Kelvin Adewale and Trisha Gomez held court near the bow, their laughter loud and performative. Kelvin's tailored suit gleamed under the lights, his Rolex catching every eye, while Trisha's red gown hugged her curves, her diamond earrings sparkling with each toss of her head. They were the center of attention, charming a circle of investors and resort executives, oblivious to the shift about to upend their world. Trisha's eyes darted across the deck, landing on Amara. Her smile twisted into a sneer. She leaned toward Kelvin, her voice low but sharp. "She's still here," she said, nodding toward Amara. "Can you believe it? Skulking around like she belongs." Kelvin followed her gaze, his charm faltering for a split second. "What's she playing at?" he muttered, his tone a mix of irritation and unease. "She's got no business being here." Trisha's laugh was sharp, drawing the attention of their group. "Oh, please," she said, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "She's probably a cleaner who snuck in. Look at her, those shoes, that dress. It's pathetic." A few in their circle chuckled, but others shifted uncomfortably, sensing the cruelty in her tone. One investor, Ms. Patel, the sharp-eyed woman who'd mentioned Amara earlier, sipped her wine, her expression skeptical. "You're awfully quick to dismiss her," she said, her voice measured. "I heard Bello Ocean Tours is making moves. Maybe she's not as out of place as you think." Trisha's smile tightened, her eyes flashing. "Moves? Don't be ridiculous. She's a nobody. Kelvin, tell her." Kelvin forced a laugh, adjusting his cufflinks. "Yeah, Ms. Patel, don't waste your time. Amara's, well, she's history. Couldn't keep up with the big leagues." Ms. Patel raised an eyebrow but said nothing, her gaze drifting to Amara, who stood alone, seemingly unaware of the mockery. Amara's calm was unnerving, her stillness a contrast to Trisha's loud disdain. Trisha, emboldened by the crowd's attention, raised her glass, her voice carrying. "To the real players in the game," she said, smirking in Amara's direction. "And to those who should stick to scrubbing decks." The crowd tittered, but the air felt charged, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Amara's lips twitched, not in anger but in quiet amusement. She set her glass down, her movements deliberate, and opened her notebook, jotting a note as if the insults were background noise. Her composure was a weapon, and Trisha, sensing it, felt a flicker of unease but dismissed it, turning back to her admirers. The jazz band paused, and a hush fell over the deck as the event's host, Mr. Raymond Dubois, a silver-haired titan of the maritime industry, stepped to a microphone at the center of the yacht. His presence commanded attention, his tailored suit and easy confidence a testament to decades of influence. The crowd turned, glasses in hand, as he raised a hand for silence. "Ladies and gentlemen," Mr. Dubois began, his voice warm but authoritative, "tonight is about celebrating Cape Town's maritime future, innovation, ambition, and the visionaries who shape it. We've gathered the best of our industry, but one guest stands out, a leader whose quiet rise is redefining coastal tourism." Amara's heart skipped, her fingers tightening on her notebook. She stood straighter, her eyes locked on Mr. Dubois, sensing the moment she'd been preparing for. Across the deck, Kelvin and Trisha exchanged smug glances, assuming the praise was for one of their rivals, or perhaps themselves. Mr. Dubois smiled, his gaze sweeping the crowd before settling on Amara. "Please join me in welcoming Ms. Amara Bello, CEO of Bello Ocean Tours, whose recent contract with Cape Coastal Resorts marks her as a force to be reckoned with." The crowd erupted in polite applause, but a ripple of surprise spread through the deck. Heads turned, searching for Amara. Kelvin froze, his glass slipping slightly in his hand. Trisha's smile vanished, her face paling as if she'd been slapped. "What?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. Amara stepped forward, her movements graceful, her expression serene. The spotlight found her, illuminating her simple dress, her worn flats, her unyielding calm. She nodded to Mr. Dubois, her voice steady as she spoke into the microphone. "Thank you, Mr. Dubois, for the honor. Bello Ocean Tours is about more than tours. It's about connecting people to the ocean, sustainably, authentically. I'm grateful to be here, among those who share that vision." The applause grew warmer, genuine, as guests whispered among themselves, intrigued by this unassuming woman who'd just been named a rising star. Ms. Patel, standing near Kelvin and Trisha, clapped slowly, her eyes gleaming with vindication. "Told you," she said under her breath, glancing at Trisha's stunned expression. Amara stepped back, her moment brief but seismic. She didn't gloat, didn't seek out Kelvin or Trisha. She simply returned to the railing, her notebook open, as if the world hadn't just shifted beneath her feet. The deck buzzed with renewed energy, guests clustering to discuss Amara's introduction. Her name was on every tongue, her story, rumored but now confirmed, spreading like wildfire. Kelvin and Trisha stood rooted near the bow, the crowd's chatter a dull roar in their ears. Kelvin's face was a mask of shock, his whiskey untouched, while Trisha's hands trembled, her champagne glass nearly spilling. "She's CEO," Kelvin muttered, his voice hoarse. "Bello Ocean Tours? That's her." Trisha's eyes burned, her voice a low hiss. "This is a mistake. She's nobody. She can't be," she stopped, her words choking as she replayed Mr. Dubois's announcement. The contract with Cape Coastal Resorts, a deal they'd coveted, was Amara's. The realization hit like a tidal wave. Ms. Patel approached, her smile polite but pointed. "Quite the surprise, isn't it?" she said, addressing Kelvin. "I had a feeling about Ms. Bello. Her company's numbers are impressive, sustainable growth, loyal clients. You two must be proud of her." Kelvin's jaw clenched, but he forced a nod. "Yeah, didn't see that coming." Trisha's laugh was brittle, her voice too loud. "Proud of her? She's just lucky. Some fluke contract doesn't make her a player." Ms. Patel's smile didn't waver, but her tone sharpened. "Luck doesn't land multi-year resort deals, Ms. Gomez. Skill does. Perhaps you should congratulate her." She walked away, leaving Trisha seething. Kelvin turned to Trisha, his voice low. Did you know about this? Her company. Anything. Trisha's eyes flashed. Me? You're the one who was with her. How did you not know? He ran a hand over his face, his confidence crumbling. I thought she was done. After I left, I figured she'd crash. Trisha's lips curled, but her bravado was fraying. She's bluffing. She has to be. That dress, those shoes, she's not one of us. But the crowd's murmurs told a different story. Guests approached Amara, offering handshakes and business cards. She greeted each with quiet grace, her responses measured but confident. Kelvin and Trisha watched, their world tilting, as the woman they'd mocked stood at the center of the room's attention. The night deepened, the yacht's lights reflecting off the dark water. Amara stood near the bar, speaking with a resort executive who praised her eco-tour model. Her notebook was open, her pen moving as she jotted down ideas, her focus unbroken despite the weight of the evening. The crowd had begun to accept her, their curiosity turning to respect, but she remained grounded, her victory quiet. Kelvin and Trisha, still reeling, watched from a distance. Trisha's anger boiled over, her voice a harsh whisper. She's not getting away with this. She's making fools of us. Kelvin grabbed her arm, his tone urgent. Trisha, stop. We can't make a scene. Not here. But Trisha pulled free, her heels clicking as she marched toward Amara. Kelvin followed, his face tight with dread. The crowd parted slightly, sensing drama, as Trisha stopped in front of Amara, her smile venomous. Well, well, Trisha said, her voice loud enough to draw eyes. Amara Bello, CEO. Quite the act you're putting on. Amara looked up from her notebook, her expression calm. No act, Trisha, she said, her voice steady. Just work. Trisha's laugh was sharp, but it cracked at the edges. Work? You're a fraud. You think a fancy title and a fluke contract make you one of us? Look at you, those shoes, that dress. You're still the same nobody Kelvin left behind. The crowd hushed, eyes darting between them. Kelvin stepped forward, his voice low. Trisha, enough. Let's go. But Amara held up a hand, her gaze locking on Trisha. You're right about one thing, she said, her voice clear, carrying across the deck. I'm not one of you. I don't need diamonds or designer gowns to know my worth. My company, my contract, my vision, they speak for me. Trisha's face reddened, but Amara turned to Kelvin, her eyes steady. And you, Kelvin. You thought I'd crumble when you took everything. But you didn't take me. You didn't take my fire. Kelvin opened his mouth, but no words came. The crowd watched, spellbound, as Amara stepped closer, her voice softening but piercing. I don't hate you. I don't need to. I built something better than what we had. And I did it without stepping on anyone. She nodded to them both, a gesture of finality, and walked past, her head high. The crowd parted, their murmurs now filled with admiration. Trisha stood frozen, her hands shaking, while Kelvin stared after Amara, his face a mix of regret and awe. As Amara reached the railing, Ms. Patel approached, her smile warm. That was remarkable, Ms. Bello. You've got a rare strength. Expect a call from my team. We'd love to discuss a partnership. Amara nodded, her voice quiet. Thank you, Ms. Patel. I'm listening. The night continued, but the air had changed. Amara Bello was no longer a ghost. She was a force, her presence undeniable, her victory complete. The deck of the Ocean Majesty pulsed with the energy of Cape Town's maritime elite, the fairy lights casting a warm glow over the crowd. The jazz band played a lively tune, and the clink of champagne glasses mingled with the hum of ambitious conversations. Amara Bello stood near the bar, her simple black dress and worn flats a quiet contrast to the opulence around her. Her notebook, tucked under her arm, was a testament to her purpose, and her calm demeanor radiated a strength that drew eyes and whispers. The announcement of her as CEO of Bello Ocean Tours had shifted the room's dynamics. Guests who'd once overlooked her now sought her out, their curiosity piqued by her unexpected rise. Amara handled each interaction with grace, her responses measured but confident, her presence commanding respect without demanding it. A group of resort executives approached, led by Ms. Patel, the sharp-eyed investor who'd challenged Kelvin and Trisha earlier. Her tailored blazer and confident stride marked her as a power player, but her smile was warm. "Ms. Bello," she said, extending a hand, "your introduction was the highlight of the evening. Bello Ocean Tours is creating quite a stir." Amara shook her hand, her voice steady. "Thank you, Ms. Patel. We're focused on sustainable tourism, connecting people to the ocean, not just profiting from it." Ms. Patel's eyes gleamed with interest. "A rare approach in this industry. My team's been tracking your contract with Cape Coastal Resorts. 50 tours a season, eco-focused, with local guides? That's ambitious." "It's necessary," Amara replied, her tone firm but warm. "The ocean's our lifeline. If we don't protect it, we're stealing from our future." The executives nodded, impressed. One, a bearded man named Mr. Bota, leaned in. "I hear you're expanding. Any plans to partner with cruise lines? We represent Southern Seas. They're looking for shore excursion providers." Amara's lips curved into a faint smile. "We're open to partnerships, Mr. Bota, but they have to align with our values: community impact, environmental care. Send me a proposal, and we'll talk." Mr. Bota chuckled, clearly charmed. "You drive a hard bargain, Ms. Bello. I like that. Expect an email by Monday." As the group moved off, Ms. Patel lingered, her voice lowering. "You've got their attention, Amara. But watch your back. Success like yours draws envy." Her eyes flicked toward Kelvin and Trisha, who stood near the bow, their faces tight with resentment. Amara followed her gaze, her expression unreadable. "I've handled worse," she said softly. "Thank you for the heads up." Ms. Patel nodded, then paused, a sly smile forming. "One more thing. My assistant applied for an internship at your company last year. Trisha Gomez. She was turned down. I believe you were the one who reviewed her application." Amara's eyes widened slightly, then sparkled with amusement. "I remember. Her resume was memorable. Not quite the fit we were looking for." Ms. Patel laughed, a rich, genuine sound. "You're diplomatic. Keep that edge, Amara. It'll take you far." She walked away, leaving Amara to process the revelation that Trisha, her loudest critic, had once sought her approval, and failed. Amara glanced at Trisha, who was whispering furiously to Kelvin, her red gown a stark contrast to her ashen face. The irony was sharp, but Amara didn't dwell on it. She opened her notebook, jotting down Mr. Bota's name and a note about cruise lines. Her victory was in her work, not their defeat. As the yacht's festivities continued, Amara slipped away to a quieter corner of the deck, near the stern, where the ocean's gentle lap offered a moment of solitude. She leaned against the railing, her notebook open, but her mind drifted back to the nights that had forged her. The memory was vivid, a stark contrast to the glittering world she now navigated. 4 years ago, Amara had been a ghost of herself, living in a one-room apartment in Cape Town's fringes. The walls were stained, the air heavy with the noise of the street below. She sat on the floor, surrounded by unpaid bills, her stomach hollow from hunger. Her notebook, then a lifeline, lay open to a sketch of a boat she couldn't afford. The betrayal by Kelvin, his theft of their business, his affair with Trisha, had left her with nothing but debt and shame. She remembered the night she'd hit her lowest point. Her neighbor, Mrs. Ndlovu, had brought her a bowl of stew, her kind eyes piercing Amara's despair. "You're not done, child," Mrs. Ndlovu had said, her voice firm. "You've got fire in you. Don't let them snuff it out." Amara had cried then, her tears soaking the stew. "I don't know how to start again," she'd whispered. "They took everything." Mrs. Ndlovu had knelt beside her, her hands rough but gentle. "They didn't take your mind, your heart, your hands. Start small. One step. The ocean's waiting." That night, Amara had opened her notebook, her fingers trembling as she sketched a new plan, a single tour, a leased boat, a dream reborn. She'd worked cleaning jobs by day, studied maritime business by night, her body exhausted but her spirit unyielding. Every rejection, every sleepless night, every moment of doubt had built the woman who now stood on this yacht, her name on the lips of the powerful. Back in the present, Amara's eyes glistened, but she blinked the tears away. She looked at the notebook in her hands, its pages a map of her survival. The crowd's laughter, the clink of glasses, faded as she traced a sketch of Ibhei 2, her current boat, and a larger one beside it, her next goal. The flashback grounded her, a reminder that her strength wasn't in this moment's glory but in the battles she'd already won. The event reached its peak as Mr. Du Bois, the host, called for attention again. The crowd gathered near the center of the deck, where a table was set with contracts and a ceremonial pen. "Tonight," Mr. Du Bois announced, "we celebrate a new partnership that will elevate Cape Town's tourism industry. Bello Ocean Tours has agreed to a global expansion deal with Horizon Ventures, connecting our coast to international markets." The crowd applauded, and Amara stepped forward, her heart pounding but her expression calm. She approached the table, where a Horizon Ventures executive, a tall woman named Ms. Langa, waited with a smile. "Ms. Bello," Ms. Langa said, her voice carrying, "your vision for sustainable tourism is exactly what we need. This deal is a game changer." Amara nodded, her voice clear. "Thank you, Ms. Langa. This partnership is about more than profit. It's about preserving our oceans and uplifting our communities. I'm honored to sign." She took the pen, her hand steady, and signed the contract. The crowd erupted in applause, cameras flashing as she shook Ms. Langa's hand. The deal was signed on the Aurora Star's deck, Kelvin and Trisha's prized yacht, a poetic twist that wasn't lost on Amara. She glanced at them, standing at the edge of the crowd, their faces a mix of shock and fury. Kelvin's hands were clenched, his eyes fixed on the contract. Trisha's lips were pressed into a thin line, her champagne glass trembling. They dreamed of a deal like this, but Amara had claimed it, her signature a quiet but deafening victory. As the crowd dispersed, Ms. Langa pulled Amara aside, her voice low. "You've got a rare gift, Amara, vision and grit. But this deal will put a target on your back. Kelvin Adewale's already sniffing around our offices, trying to undercut you." Amara's eyes flickered with resolve. "Let him try. I've built this from nothing. I know how to protect it." Ms. Langa smiled, impressed. "Good. We're betting on you. Don't let us down." Amara nodded, her notebook open as she jotted down a reminder to review the deal's terms. The real win wasn't the applause or the contract, it was the future she was building, one that no one could take from her. As the night wound down, the crowd thinned, guests drifting to the bar or the dance floor. Amara stood near the railing, her notebook closed, her gaze on the dark water. The weight of the evening, her unveiling, the contract, the respect earned, settled over her, a quiet triumph tempered by the scars of her journey. She sensed him before she saw him. Kelvin approached, alone, his suit slightly rumpled, his confidence replaced by a hesitant vulnerability. Trisha was nowhere in sight, likely nursing her wounded pride at the bar. He stopped a few feet away, his hands in his pockets, his voice low. "Amara." She turned, her expression neutral. "Kelvin." He shifted, struggling for words. I didn't know. About your company, your deal. You've done something incredible." Amara's eyes searched his, seeing the man she'd once loved, now diminished by his choices. "I had to," she said simply. "You left me no choice." He flinched, his voice cracking. "I'm sorry, Amara. For everything. The money, Trisha, the business. I was wrong. I thought I was chasing something bigger, but I lost you." The words hung between them, heavy with regret. Amara's heart ached, but not with longing, only the echo of a wound long healed. She stepped closer, her voice soft but firm. "You didn't lose me, Kelvin. You threw me away. But that betrayal, it built me. It made me stronger than I ever thought I could be." Kelvin's eyes glistened, his voice barely a whisper. "Can you forgive me?" Amara considered him, her gaze steady. "I already have," she said. Not for you, for me. I don't carry that hate anymore. But don't mistake forgiveness for trust. We're done. He nodded, his shoulders sagging. I get it. I'm proud of you, Amara. For what it's worth. She smiled faintly, a gesture of closure. It's worth something. Thank you. Kelvin walked away, his figure fading into the crowd. Amara turned back to the water, her heart lighter. The past was behind her, its lessons carved into her strength. She opened her notebook, sketching a new boat, her mind already on the future, a future she would shape, unburdened by regret. The morning sun bathed Cape Town's harbor in a golden glow, the docks bustling with the rhythm of a new day. Amara Bello stood in the modest office of Bello Ocean Tours, her small team gathered around a whiteboard filled with tour schedules and expansion plans. The air hummed with purpose, the walls adorned with photos of smiling tourists and framed articles about their recent global partnership with Horizon Ventures. Amara, dressed in a simple navy blouse and jeans, her hair in a neat braid, radiated quiet authority, her notebook open on the desk. Today was different. Not about contracts or deals, but about giving back. Amara had spent weeks planning a scholarship program for girls from coastal towns, offering training in maritime careers, navigation, marine biology, business management. It was her way of ensuring the ocean's future wasn't just for the elite but for those who loved it as she did. Lindy, her marketer, stood beside her, holding a stack of applications. We've got 50 girls signed up already, Lindy said, her eyes bright. From Khayelitsha, Gansby, even as far as Port Elizabeth. They're hungry, Amara. They want this. Amara smiled, flipping through the applications, each accompanied by a handwritten essay. Good. Let's make it 100 by next month. These girls deserve a shot, and we're going to give it to them. Mr. Elias Nkosi, her mentor, leaned on his cane in the corner, his weathered face creased with pride. You're building more than a business, Amara, he said, his voice gravelly but warm. This is a legacy. Those girls will carry your name long after we're gone. Amara met his gaze, her voice soft but firm. That's the point. I didn't have anyone to show me the way when I started. If I can be that for them, it's worth every sleepless night. Lindy hesitated, then spoke, her tone curious. Why girls, Amara? I mean, it's amazing, but why focus there? Amara paused, her fingers tracing the edge of her notebook. Because I know what it's like to be underestimated, to be told you don't belong. Girls in these towns, they're smart, fierce, but the world tells them the ocean's not for them. I'm proving it is. The room fell silent, her words carrying the weight of her journey. Then the door opened, and Mrs. Ndlovu, Amara's old neighbor, stepped in, her eyes twinkling. She'd become a regular at the office, bringing wisdom and homemade biscuits. Heard about your scholarships, she said, setting a tin on the desk. You're making waves, child. My granddaughter's applying. She wants to be a captain like you. Amara's heart swelled. Tell her to come see me, she said, her voice warm. I'll show her the ropes myself. Mrs. Ndlovu patted her hand. You're doing right by the ocean, Amara. And by those girls. Don't ever stop. As the team dispersed to finalize the program's launch, Amara stood by the window, looking out at the harbor. Her reflection showed a woman forged by betrayal, hunger, and relentless drive. The scholarships weren't just charity, they were her promise to the future, a legacy that would outlive her. Dusk settled over the harbor, the sky a tapestry of orange and purple. The Ibhei 2, Amara's modest but elegant yacht, was docked at the edge of the yacht club, its polished deck gleaming under the fading light. Tonight, it wasn't hosting tourists but a small gathering of Amara's team, Mr. Nkosi, Mrs. Ndlovu, and a few scholarship applicants. Young girls with bright eyes and nervous smiles, their dreams as vast as the ocean. Amara stood at the helm, her hands steady on the wheel, her navy coat replaced by a crisp white captain's jacket, a gift from her crew. The yacht glided out of the harbor, its engine humming softly, the water parting in gentle ripples. The girls clustered on the deck, whispering in awe as the coastline receded, Cape Town's lights twinkling like stars. Lindy approached, a glass of sparkling juice in hand. You look like you were born for this, she said, nodding at the helm. "Captain Amara Bello. Has a nice ring." Amara laughed, her voice light. "It's just Amara, Lindile. This," she gestured to the yacht, the ocean, "this is what I was born for." One of the girls, a 16-year-old named Thandy from Gansby, stepped forward, her braids swinging. "Ms. Bello," she said, her voice shy but determined. "When I get your scholarship, I want to learn to steer a boat like this. Can you teach me?" Amara's eyes softened. "Not just steer, Thandy. I'll teach you to command it. The ocean's yours if you're brave enough to claim it." Thandy's face lit up, and the other girls murmured excitedly, their fear giving way to ambition. Mr. Nkosi, standing nearby, raised his glass. "A toast," he said, his voice carrying over the deck. "To Amara Bello, who turned betrayal into triumph, and to these girls, who'll carry her fire forward." The group raised their glasses, juice for the girls, wine for the adults, cheering as the yacht sailed on. Mrs. Ndlovu joined Amara at the helm, her voice low. "I told you the ocean was waiting, child. Look at you now, captain of your own ship, lighting the way for others." Amara's throat tightened, but she smiled. "I had help, Mrs. Ndlovu. You, Mr. Nkosi, this team. I'm not alone anymore." Mrs. Ndlovu squeezed her arm. "You never were. The ocean's always been with you." As the yacht turned back toward the harbor, Amara stood tall, her eyes on the horizon. The Aurora Star, Kelvin and Trisha's ostentatious yacht, was docked in the distance, a relic of a past she'd outgrown. She felt no anger, only peace. Her journey had come full circle, not in revenge, but in purpose. She was Amara Bello, captain, CEO, mentor, and her story was just beginning. The girls' laughter filled the air, the ocean stretching endlessly before them. Amara steered Ibhei to home, her heart full, her legacy alive in every wave. "I'm glad you made it to the end. I hope you enjoyed the story."